The Unapologetic Rebellion: How Black Women Leaders Redefine Emotional Availability. Thank you all for being here today. I'm deeply honored to stand before you to share insights that have fundamentally shifted my understanding of what it truly means to be emotionally available, especially for Black women in positions of leadership. I recently had the extraordinary privilege of interviewing Vesha Cobb, a revolutionary force whose work has been quietly transforming how Black women approach leadership, emotional intelligence, and authentic self expression. Vesha isn't just a thought leader, she's a healer, a truth teller, and a visionary who has helped hundreds of women break free from generations of conditioning that equated strength with self sacrifice. Her methodologies have created ripples across industries, empowering Black women to lead with both power and authenticity in spaces that historically demanded they fragment themselves to survive. What I'm about to share comes directly from our profound conversation, and I believe her message has the power to transform not just individual lives, but entire organizations, communities, and ultimately our collective understanding of what true leadership looks like. Here's the counterintuitive truth that Vesha illuminated for me. The journey from being a doormat, constantly putting others' needs before your own, to becoming an emotionally available woman is not about becoming softer or more agreeable. It's about developing the strength to set boundaries, honor your emotions, and show up authentically, even when it feels uncomfortable or goes against what people expect of you as a Black woman in leadership. This insight turns conventional wisdom on its head. We've been told that emotional availability means being perpetually accessible, endlessly accommodating. But what if that's completely backward? What if true emotional availability requires courage and self mastery, not just vulnerability? Think about it. We live in a world that constantly sends Black women mixed messages. Be strong, but not intimidating. Be confident, but not arrogant. Be emotionally intelligent, but don't you dare show anger. Be authentic, but make sure that authenticity fits within acceptable parameters. These contradictions create an impossible standard, one that leaves many high achieving Black women exhausted, depleted, and disconnected from their true selves. They've mastered the art of survival, but at what cost? I want to share three key insights from my conversation with Vesha that fundamentally challenge how we think about emotional availability, particularly for Black women in leadership positions. First, you are allowed to take up space and lead with both your intellect and your heart. Emotional intelligence isn't weakness, it's a superpower that can transform how you navigate professional spaces. When Vesha shared this with me, I could feel the weight of liberation in her words. For too long, we've operated under the false assumption that showing emotion in professional settings somehow diminishes our authority or competence. But what if the opposite is true? What if emotional intelligence, the ability to recognize, understand, and manage our own emotions while skillfully navigating the emotions of others, is actually the most sophisticated form of intelligence we can develop? Let me tell you about the Black Woman Leading Live Retreat. This isn't just another professional development program. It's a transformational space where Black women executives and entrepreneurs come together to strengthen their emotional intelligence muscles. I spoke with several women who attended this retreat. Many arrived feeling undervalued in their organizations, battling daily microaggressions, struggling with imposter syndrome, and teetering on the edge of burnout. One participant, a senior marketing executive at a Fortune 500 company, told me she had spent 2 decades shape shifting to fit into corporate culture, leaving her authentic self at home each morning. Through intensive workshops on emotional mastery, boundary setting exercises, and authentic communication strategies, these women discovered something revolutionary. Their emotions weren't liabilities to be managed, but assets to be integrated. The transformation was profound. Women who had spent years dimming their light began to shine. They returned to their organizations with a newfound ability to advocate for themselves, to bring their full brilliance to the table, to lead from a place of wholeness rather than fragmentation. One participant launched her own consulting firm 6 months after attending. Another received a promotion she'd been passed over for 3 times. But the most powerful outcome wasn't external success, it was the internal liberation. For the first time in my career, one woman told me, I feel like I can breathe. I don't have to choose between being effective and being myself. This brings me to Vesha's second insight. Healing old wounds, including self sabotage and deeply rooted beliefs, takes real work. But facing these challenges head on allows you to break free from cycles of people pleasing and step into authentic leadership. We often talk about leadership development as if it's primarily about acquiring new skills. But what if the most important leadership work happens beneath the surface? What if it's about excavating and healing the wounds that drive our unconscious behaviors? Dr. Ruth Pomby Chiraga's groundbreaking doctoral research illuminates this truth. Her extensive study on the lived experiences of Black women in senior leadership roles across UK organizations revealed something profound. Those who invested in healing internal wounds reported not only greater job satisfaction, but also increased effectiveness as leaders. The women in Dr. Chiraga's study faced systemic racism through microaggressions, biased evaluations, and negative projections regarding their authority. Yet those who develop strong internal resilience, often through therapy, coaching, or healing centered mentorship, were able to navigate these challenges without compromising their authenticity. Dr. Chiraga herself experienced exclusion early in her career. During a pivotal leadership meeting, a colleague openly questioned whether she was too emotional to lead a major initiative, despite her having the most experience on the team. Rather than internalizing this criticism, Dr. Chiraga used it as fuel for her research mission to create more inclusive workplaces where all leaders could thrive authentically. Her findings have now shaped diversity initiatives across multiple multinational companies. But more importantly, they've sparked crucial conversations about redefining what true authority looks like and why embracing one's whole self is not just personally healing, but organizationally transformative. The third insight from my conversation with Vesha challenges another deeply held belief. Setting boundaries is not selfish, it's essential for sustainable success as an entrepreneur or leader. When you protect your energy, everyone around you benefits because they get the best version of you. We've been conditioned to believe that saying yes to everything and everyone is the path to success. But what if that approach is actually sabotaging our effectiveness? What if our inability to set boundaries is not just harming us, but limiting our impact on the world? Queen's Executive Education's Emotional Intelligence Leadership Program offers a fascinating window into this principle in action. This program teaches practical strategies based on psychological frameworks tailored toward diverse professionals, including many rising Black executives, for mastering emotional intelligence at work. One participant, a brilliant physician who had recently stepped into a hospital leadership role, shared how she initially tried to be available to everyone at all times. She answered emails at midnight, took calls during family dinners, and never declined a request for help. 6 months into her role, she was diagnosed with stress induced hypertension. Through the program's emotional intelligence assessments and coaching, she identified how fear, specifically fear of being seen as difficult or not a team player, was driving her boundary less behavior. With support, she began implementing what she called compassionate boundaries, clear limits communicated with both firmness and care. The results were transformative. Not only did her health improve, but her team's performance soared. By modeling sustainable leadership practices, she created a culture where everyone felt permission to honor their own limits. Efficiency increased, burnout decreased, and the quality of patient care improved measurably. This wasn't an isolated success story. Graduates of this program consistently report higher rates of promotion, improved team dynamics, and greater personal fulfillment. They discover that setting boundaries isn't about building walls, it's about creating the conditions for sustainable success. As I reflect on these insights from Vesha Cobb, I'm struck by how they challenge our fundamental assumptions about strength, vulnerability, and leadership, particularly for Black women who have been socialized to be strong at all costs. The journey from doormat to emotionally available leader isn't about becoming more accommodating. It's about developing the courage to honor your emotions, set clear boundaries, and show up authentically, even when it feels uncomfortable or goes against expectations. This journey requires us to redefine strength itself. True strength isn't about enduring mistreatment or sacrificing your well being for others. It's about having the courage to say no when necessary, to make space for your own needs, and to bring your full, authentic self to every interaction. For Black women in particular, this redefinition is revolutionary. In a world that has historically demanded their strength while punishing their vulnerability, claiming the right to emotional availability represents a profound act of self liberation. But this isn't just about individual transformation. When Black women leaders embrace their emotional intelligence, set healthy boundaries, and show up authentically, they create ripple effects throughout their organizations and communities. They model a new way of leading that integrates head and heart, that values both results and relationships. I want to leave you with this challenge. What if emotional availability is actually the most radical form of leadership we can embody in these complex times? What if the path to creating more humane, innovative, and resilient organizations begins not with another strategic plan, but with leaders who have the courage to be fully human? Starting today, right now, I challenge you to redefine what strength looks like in your own leadership. Set one boundary that honors your well being. Express one emotion you've been hiding. Bring one more authentic piece of yourself into your work, because the world doesn't need more leaders who have mastered the art of self sacrifice. It needs leaders who have mastered the art of self honor, who understand that true strength lies not in endurance, but in authenticity, not in accommodation, but in integration. This is the revolution that Vesha Cobb is quietly leading, a revolution that redefines emotional availability as an act of courage rather than compliance. And it's a revolution that has the power to transform not just individual lives, but our collective understanding of what leadership can and should be. The question isn't whether you can afford to be emotionally available. The question is, can we afford not to be? Thank you.